Jewish Channel's Week in Review. More violence in Israel. What Israelis are doing here in the U.S. Was a Jewish rapper's website hacked by ISIS? And more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now in this episode of the Week in Review. And welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. In recent weeks, we've been discussing escalating tensions and violence in Israel, and this week we see the deadliest attack on Israeli civilians since 2011. At least 4 are dead as a result of an attack on a synagogue in Jerusalem in which 2 Palestinians wielding a gun, knives, and axes entered a synagogue and struck down a group of men mid-prayer. 3 of them held dual U.S.-Israeli citizenship, and 1 held dual British-Israeli citizenship. Among them was Rabbi Moshe Twersky, scion of a major rabbinic dynasty here in the United States. His father, Isidore Twersky, was a famed scholar of Jewish thought at Harvard University, and his grandfather, Joseph Soloveitchik, was perhaps the most prominent modern Orthodox thinker of the 20th century, and personally ordained more than 2,000 rabbis. Twersky may well be the most well-known Israeli civilian ever to have been killed in a terror attack. He is within a degree or two of separation from extremely large swaths of the American Jewish community. The killing of 3 American citizens is likely to lead to specific involvement by the U.S. in this issue. President Barack Obama released a statement shortly after the attack, declaring in part, "I strongly condemn today's terrorist attack on worshippers at a synagogue in Jerusalem, which killed 4 innocent people, including U.S. citizens Aryeh Kupinski, Carrie William Levine, and Moshe Twersky, and injured several more. There is and can be no justification for such attacks against innocent civilians. At this sensitive moment in Jerusalem, it is all the more important for Israeli and Palestinian leaders and ordinary citizens to work cooperatively together to lower tensions, reject violence, and seek a path forward towards peace." Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the attack, quote, "the direct result of the incitement led by Hamas and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, incitement that the international community irresponsibly ignores," adding, quote, "we will respond with a strong hand to the cruel murder of Jews who came to pray and were caught by dark, murderous hands." Tying together Hamas and Abbas, as Netanyahu did there, is something that would be rejected by both Hamas and Abbas's Fatah group, which are generally opposed to each other and which present differing visions of interaction with the Jewish state. Their differing responses speak to that gap. "The new operation is heroic and a natural reaction to Zionist criminality against our people and our holy places," wrote a Hamas spokesperson in a statement, adding, quote, "we have the full right to revenge for the blood of our martyrs in all possible means." In contrast, a statement from Abbas read, quote, "we condemn the killing of civilians from any side. We condemn the killings of worshippers at the synagogue in Jerusalem and condemn acts of violence no matter their source." Moving on, we've got 2 field segments about Israelis here in America in this week's newscast. First, an Israeli band touring the states with a Yemenite twang, as Christian Eden reports.
An Israeli band with a unique sound rocked Joe's Pub in New York this week, with dashes of American blues, African rhythms, and a Yemenite soul. The Jewish Channel caught a show from Yemenite blues and talked with singer and composer Ravid Kahalani about his eclectic influences.
I was taught to pray and sing very specifically in the Yemenite way. When I left home, I started to listen to music like blues and funk and all kinds of things that was kind of from other culture, but it felt really natural to me. And then I discovered the West and North African music, which changed my life and also showed me the direct connection between my culture and the blues, and why it's so similar and why it's kind of directly connected.
The Joe's Pub show comes at an especially busy time for the touring band.
We've been traveling a lot, over 250 shows for the last 3.5 years or 4 years. We're just now about to release a new album called Insania, which is humanity in Yemenite. New music and new spirit and new vibe.
The new album, slated for release early next year, features a variety of special guests reflecting Yemen blues' diverse influences.
First guest is Oxmo Puccino, an amazing big rapper in France. We have also featured one of the greatest voices of Sahara, Mariam Hassan. We also featuring the Yemenite star Zion Golan, so it's an honor also. I grew up on some of his music.
Kahalani's music also features a variety of languages.
Mostly I sing in Yemenite Arabic. I sing also in French. We're going to do one new song in French today. And I sing in Moroccan, and I sing in Creole, and in Hebrew.
In bringing together those various cultures and sounds, Kahalani wants Yemen Blues' music to share a message of tolerance and unity. To see more from Yemen Blues at Joe's Pub, please tune into the full broadcast edition of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. Rebecca Honig-Freeman reports on an effort to reach out to Israelis who are here in the U.S. for a longer period.
About once a month, barak-stein leads a parenting workshop at the Stephen Wise Free Synagogue on Manhattan's Upper West Side. It's not an unusual type of program to find in this family-oriented neighborhood, but what makes this workshop different is that it's conducted entirely in Hebrew.
I work on parenting issues, like, discipline, self-esteem, to date siblings, and especially how it works when they're Israelis and they live in New York.
It's hard to know exactly how many Israelis live in the New York metro area, but estimates from the Israeli-American Council put the number at up to 200,000, with between 750 to 800,000 Israelis living across the United States. If you include their children, that number goes up to 1 million. But Israelis living here don't necessarily engage with the American Jewish community or with Jewish practice and observance. And Stephen Wise, a Reform synagogue, is trying to change that with an outreach initiative called Chofshi b'Manhattan, Hebrew for free in Manhattan. The idea was first conceived by the synagogue's longtime rabbi Amiel Hirsch, who himself was raised in Israel. He was concerned about Jewish continuity among Israelis living here long term.
The limited amount of studies have shown over the years is that Israelis who come to the United States are just as prone to assimilation and dropping out entirely of Judaism as American Jews, perhaps even more so.
In Israel, where Jewish religious institutions are predominantly Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox, the vast majority of Israeli Jews consider themselves secular or traditional. The director of Chofshi b'Manhattan, Sarit Ron, an Israeli who's been living in the U.S. for 20 years, said some of her work is simply getting Israelis to step foot in the synagogue.
I think a lot of people at the beginning said, oh, it's a synagogue. And then they came and they said, hey, that's a synagogue, and it actually feels fine for me, and I felt comfortable. And that's our message. We are free, not just free of money, it's free in your thought. And that's why we call ourselves Chofshi b'Manhattan. It's freedom that you have first in your frame of thinking.
Most of Chofshi b'Manhattan's programming is cultural rather than religious in nature. In addition to the parenting workshops, there are Shabbat services conducted in Hebrew, and Sifriyat Pajama, Hebrew for PJ Library, book readings for kids, among other events. The aim is to target what program organizers see as the specific needs and concerns of Israelis living here. Participants appreciate that the programs provide a space that feels comfortable to their Israeli mindset.
Chofshi in Manhattan giving us a very good bridge, for our life here in America, that everything is English, basically. We're living in English, but we feel in Hebrew.
For more on Chofshi b'Manhattan, watch the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Rebecca. In the war between various Islamic terrorist groups and the West, Jewish rapper Kosha Dills claims his website was a target. Meredith Gansman has that story.
72, Jewish heavenly proof, 11 dead, 11th hour, Black September flower, Feta Yun scarf cover head, Uzi versus AK, faces.
Rapper Kosha Dills is known for his Jewish-inflected hip-hop music. But these days, his website is getting more attention. That's because last month, his website was allegedly hacked by the supporters of the terror group, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, better known as ISIS.
And then it was like a shrine of like homage to ISIS and all these terror attacks and stuff of like warplanes and bloody children, and it was just basically stating like death to the infidels in the U.S., to Israel, and that, seeking the vengeance of everyone, of all, American military that was basically causing the deaths of Muslims in the Middle East.
Koshadil says perhaps his music made him a target.
We thought it was directly related maybe to one of the songs that me and this kid Diwan did, and we were rapping over like a drumming Israeli tank, and it was...
What was the name of the song?
No More War, because the guy says no more war, but it was like during the Israeli conflict.
What did you do after you found out that the site was hacked? Immediately after?
Well, I just kind of contacted my web guy, and he was out of work for the day, so I was like, oh my God. And then we eventually got it to where people were going to my site within like 48 hours. I had it just directed to my Facebook page.
So did you contact the government at all about ISIS?
No, I don't really. I stay out of contacting government just for personal reasons.
And did anybody from the government come to you after this
Well,
was
I
leaked?
think the thing was that people said, my one friend, who her relative or her like fiance that worked with some government association in DC, their friends and friends, they said, oh yeah, we already knew about this. So I think they were watching the hacking group maybe that was doing it, but they said they knew about it, which was even creepier to me, because like, how do I not know about it? And
What was the name of that organization?
what organization?
The government organization that said they knew about it.
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't really. It doesn't really matter to me, but I'm sure it's someone. I just don't kind of keep my head in it. You know, I just know somebody that knows somebody.
For more on Koshadils, tune into the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Meredith. Finally, on this week's episode of Up Close, we're taking two perspectives on the cycles we humans go through. We've all seen political and election cycles, but none of us has had the front row seat of NBC News political director and moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. Examining the administration of President Barack Obama to date, Todd is the author of The Stranger, Barack Obama in the White House. But then there are larger, broader cycles that affect so much of how we live. These are cycles that outlast not only presidencies, but countries and eras. MacArthur Genius Grant awardee and Columbia University professor Ruth DeFries explores these cycles in The Big Ratchet, How Humanity Thrives in the Face of Natural Crisis. Here are some of the highlights from my interview with Ruth DeFries. In not that great amount of time, we've massively increased our population.
It's an explosion in population over the past 50 years, a quadrupling or so. Part of that is from the availability of food. Part of that is from public health measures, sanitation, vaccines, etc.
Yeah, and you draw this interesting contrast between the time of Socrates and the time of today. That Socrates said, if you got the from a distance, the world looks blue and green, right? But and you wouldn't notice that humans are here if you took a bird's eye view, if you took a high sky view of the world, but you would very much notice that today. And that's a major change from even just, again, 100 years ago.
Almost everywhere you look, there is an imprint of what we've done to the planet, and much of it has related to the need to produce food. So farms, pastures, roads, cities are very dominant features on the planet now.
It's only near the very end that you bring up climate change, which is probably the dominant issue in terms of discussion of what may face us in the coming decades, in the coming century.
Today, climate and food production are very tightly linked. Agriculture produces about a quarter of all the greenhouse gases emissions from human sources, whether it's livestock or cutting down trees to expand agriculture. So it's a big part of the climate issue today. Not to mention the other side of it is that agriculture, there's a big effect of climate on agriculture that we are already seeing.
When you look at this landscape of all these problems we're facing, quite acutely at a much more precise moment in time than the kinds of problems that we were facing before. What's your best guess? How do we go forward?
My best guess, well, I wouldn't want to make a guess because so many times people have predicted calamity that has not come to pass. But my thinking would be that if we apply our ingenuity and do a lot of hard work on these tough problems that we face, obesity, climate change, all of these issues, that we will muddle through like we have in the past.
You can see the full episode of Up Close on the Jewish Channel on cable. You can also listen to the full audio of Up Close as a podcast, available on iTunes or in your favorite podcast player. That's all for this week. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable: Time Warner Cable Channel 1640, IOPLING Channel 505, RCN Channel 268, Cox Cable Channel 1, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, and on Comcast on the on-demand menu on premium channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.